Hi guys, it's Mr. Palomino. I hope all of you are at home passing this quarantine, not having time out at home and taking care of you and your family, and following all the government recommendations to avoid the spread of the virus. In this video, I'm going to talk about the cell theory. That is a topic we already studied in class, but today I want to clarify some different things we have to do. First of all, I want that you please play the video that it is starting here, so it will clarify us something about the history of the microscope. That is a really important topic to understand the statement of the cell theory. The history of the cell theory is a story of the actual observations of the cells, because early predictions was speculations about it. The nature of the cell were generally unsuccessful. The decisive event that allowed the observation of cells was the invention of the microscope in the 17th century, after which interest in the visible world was stimulated. The English physicist Robert Hooke, who described cork and other plant tissues in 1665, introduced the term cell because the cellulose walls of dead cork cells reminded him of the blocks of cells occupied by the monks. Even after the publication in 1672 of excellent pictures of plant tissues, no significance was attached to the contents within the cell walls. The magnifying powers of the microscope and the inadequacy of techniques for preparing cells for observations preclude a study of the intimate details of the cell content. The inspired Dutch microscopist Anton von Leeuwenhoek, beginning at 1673, discovered the blood cells, spermatozoa, and a lively world of animalcules. A new world of unicellular organisms was opened up. Such discoveries extended the known variety of living things but did not bring insight into their basic uniformity. Moreover, when Leeuwenhoek observed the swarming of his animalcules but failed to observe the divisions, he could only reinforce the idea that they arose spontaneously. It is important to clarify that the cell theory was not formulated for nearly 2,000 years after the introduction of the microscope. Explanations for this delay range from the poor quality of the microscopes to the persistence of ancient ideas concerning the definition of a fundamental living unit. Many observations of cells were made up, but apparently none of the observers was able to assert forcefully that cells are the unit of biological structure and function. Although Scottish botanist Robert Brown was responsible for discovering the nucleus of a cell, he is perhaps best known for his discovery of the random movement of microscopic particles in a surrounding solution, later referred as Brownian motion. He also developed alternative plant classification systems. Matthias Schleiden was born in Germany. He did not originally pursue his interest in botany. Instead, he studied law. But after some years, he abandoned the profession altogether in 1831 and returned to college to pursue his real interest, botany and medicine. After his graduation, Schleiden became professor of botany at Jena's University. Instead of spending his time classifying plants, however, he preferred to observe their development using the microscope because he felt that was the only way plants could be studied. By 1838, his methods had led him to propose the cell theory for plants. Matthias made the first generalized statement about the cells, which was that all plant tissues are made of cells, and that the cells were the basic building blocks of plants. German physiologist Theodor Schwann and German biologist Matthias Schleiden clearly stated in 1839 that cells are the elementary particles of organisms, in both plants and animals, and recognized that some organisms are unicellular and others multicellular. This statement was made in Schwann's studies and ratified in Schleiden's studies. They worked together. That's why Theodor Schwann came to the conclusion that animal tissue was made of cells, which ended the debate that plants and animals had different structures. In other words, Matthias Schleiden worked in plants and Theodor Schwann did the same in animals. He also made a theory that states that cell organisms and organisms are made of two or more cells, and that cells are the basic units of structure for all organisms. Schleiden and Schwann's descriptive statements concerning the cellular basis of biological structures are straightforward and acceptable to modern thought. They recognize the common features of cells to be the membrane, nucleus, and the cell body, and describe them in comparisons of bodies animal and plant tissues, a statement by Sladen pointed toward the future direction of cell studies. Each cell leads a double life, an independent one, pertaining to its own development alone, and another incidental, insofar as it has become an integral part of a plant. It is, however, easy to perceive that the vital process of the individual cells must form the first absolutely indispensable fundamental basis, but as regard vegetable physiology and comparative physiology in general. Albert von Kolliker discovered that the sperm and egg are cells. Kolliker was thus one of the first to utilize the cellular elements of tissue structure descriptively. Indeed, its breakthrough lay in presenting the study of the tissue in terms of the cell theory. Alexander Carl Brown, chief botanist of the Nature Philosophy School, a doctrine attempting to explain the natural phenomena in terms of the speculative theories of essences and archetypes that dominate early 19th century German science. Despite his lifelong adherence to vitalistic principles, Brown added important qualifications to the cell theory. For example, the concept of the cells as the basic unit of life. He also did much to elucidate the sex cycles of primitive plants. Collaborating with the German biologist Karl Schimper, he attempted to establish an idealized plant model based on their observations that the arrangement of leaves of the plant stem, in many cases described a spiral pattern according to fixed geometrical rules. Schwamm and Sladen were not alone in contributing to this great generalization of natural science, for strong intimidations of a cell theory occurred in the work of their predecessors. Recognizing that the basic problem was the origin of cells, these early investigators invented an hypothesis of free cell formation, according to which cells developed de novo out on unformed substances as cytoplasm, by a sequence of events in which first the nucleolus develops, followed by the nucleus, cell body, and finally the cell membrane. The best physical model of the generation of formed bodies then available was crystallization, and their theory was inspired by that. In retrospect, the hypothesis of free cell formation would not seem to have been justified. However, since cell division, a feature not characteristic of crystallization process, had frequently been observed by early microscopists, especially among single-cell organisms. Even though cell division was observed repeatedly in the following decades, the theory of free cell formation lingered through most of the 19th century. However, it came to be thought more and more as possible exception to the general principle of the reproduction of cells by division. The correct general principle was affirmed in 1855 by German pathologist and statesman Rudolf Virchow, who accepted that omnis cellula est cellula. In other words, all cells come from pre-existing cells. Louis Pasteur, French chemist and microbiologist, who was one of the most important founders of medical microbiology. Pasteur's contributions to science, technology, and medicine are nearly without precedent. He pioneered the study of molecular symmetry, discovered that microorganisms cause fermentation and disease, originated the process of pasteurization, saved the beer, wine, and cell industries in France, and developed vaccines against anthrax and rabies. That's how, actually, guys, we have the first of the three statements of the cell theory that says all living things are made of cells. It doesn't matter if the organisms are unicellular and multicellular. Do not forget the difference between them. The unicellular organisms are single-cell organisms and can carry out all of the functions of the life independently. Meanwhile, the multicellular organisms have specialized cells to carry out the specific functions. Now we have the second statement of the cell theory. Cells are the smallest units of life. It is important to clarify that specialized structures within cells, in other words, the organelles, carry out different functions. Organelles cannot survive alone outside of the cell. Remember, the organelles cannot survive alone outside of the cells. And finally, the third statement of the cell theory. The cells come only from pre-existing cells. It means that the cells multiply through divisions. All life evolved from simple ancestors. You are going to study later in 6th or 7th grade two different cell cycles, the mitosis and meiosis. In mitosis, that results in genetically identical diploid daughter cells. Meanwhile, in meiosis, it is a process by which it generates haploid gametes, in other words, the sex cells. If you want to be clarified, the sperm and the gamete. Especially, Pasteur disproved the theory of spontaneous generation according to the different experiments he did. Guys, thank you for watching, and I hope you continue with the assignment given in this virtual session, and I will answer your question in a next session. Thank you. See you soon. Bye.